Wow, what an introduction. That's almost too much information. But that's what we're doing here tonight. I thought I would probably read some stories to you, tell you some stuff, let you ask some questions. If you don't have questions, I come equipped with my own. I travel around to a lot of schools and I get great questions. I was actually saying today, just when you think you've heard every question, you can go to a school and get a new one. My favorite one from today was, after this whole discussion about how books are made, how publishing works, about drafts, about really like kind of fun, intricate stuff about publishing, this one little third grader said, "Do you have a hot tub?" I said, well, I don't know what to say to that. Should I tell you if I do? I don't know, maybe you guys can figure that. Is that a Nashville thing? Well, after this next hour, I promise you will know more than you probably want to know about John Scieszka. You'll be begging for mercy. But starting with, like, how do you pronounce that name? That's kind of where I start every presentation, adults or kids. And it's easy. It's just like it looks. It's John. The H is silent and invisible. Though actually the last name would be easy if you're Polish, because my grandparents came straight from Poland to Michigan, where my dad's family grew up. And it's close to a Polish word that means path. So I'm just actually Johnny Path over in Poland. But if you're here in America, it's more like Scieszka. So everyone try Scieszka. Oh, that's perfect. You're all speaking Polish now. So I thought I would show you a little bit about this new book, Frank Einstein. But before that, I should probably set the stage and answer some of the questions that I get, like, where do you get your ideas? What was the first book you did? What's wrong with your hair? How old are you? How much money do you make? Is your Lamborghini parked in the parking lot? That was from today, too. That. Will you marry me? That was from a 4th grader. That's a good one, too. So here was the first book I published 25 years ago, The True Story of the Three Pigs. And that's a long story how we got to it. I won't tell you that one yet. That's terrible. Stinky Cheese Man was another one. You might have seen Math Curse, which is about a little girl who everything turns into a math problem during her day. Science Verse, everything turns into a science poem. And then there's some Time Warp Trio books, because I taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade for a while. And I just kind of stole all these characters from my 3rd grade and imagined what would happen if these guys could travel around in time. So I send them back into the Middle Ages, or to meet up with gladiators and see you later, gladiator. These are some books I'm doing right now for kindergartners, which is all about kind of engaging boys to be readers by giving them stuff they might like to read. And I love it. Like, I've seen kids see this cover, little boys in the bookstore, just like zombie walk over toward it and go like, talk, or gawk. Like, they can't even talk yet, but it's like, give me that. It's not the very quiet cricket. Not to say there's anything bad with that. But you need a truck book once in a while, right? Truckery Rhymes, which is just nursery rhymes done with the truck characters. I steal a lot of stuff from other places, you might notice. This is just The Golden Arm, done as The Spooky Tire. But here's the story of where I get my ideas, where all these things came from. A lot of these stories are contained in this book titled Knucklehead. Yes, and that's me driving the tank there, me in 2nd grade. And I kind of love this one the most just for the cover. And it's just the story of me growing up with, here they are, all 6 of the Scieszka boys, who all fit in 10 years. And that's where all the moms go, oh, Your poor mom. And actually I illustrated the whole book with these pictures from my scrapbook, because I have a scrapbook, because I'm the second oldest. And if you're a parent, you know how this works. So look at Jim and I. We're the first two. We have full-blown suits with monogrammed pocket handkerchiefs. That's a little S on there. Tom has a suit, but I think it's Jim's. Greg has a nubby sweater. Brian definitely has someone else's coat. And Jeff has nothing. Jeff doesn't even have a haircut. I think he just sort of like crawled out of his bedroom or something. And that's how it worked. Jim and I have scrapbooks with everything in it. We have every birthday card we ever got. The teeth that fell out of our head. We have little prints of our feet, of our hands, that little bracelet from the hospital. Tom has a scrapbook, but stuff's just kind of thrown in there. And then Greg has kind of a decent scrapbook too, more stuff thrown in there. Brian has a shopping bag, number 5. And then number 6 is the saddest. He's got a sandwich baggie. There's only like 4 or 5 pictures, and they're all kind of group shots. And Jeff's not even in half of them. He's just like, Mom. But that's what happens when you're number 6. Though he got to stay up later, and he didn't have to follow rules and stuff. And so that's what I love telling kids. I think that's how I became a storyteller. It was all about who could tell the best story. That's how you got away with stuff. I mean, because in our house, it was chaos, as you can imagine. I don't even know how we all got fed. I mean, I have 2 kids. My daughter Casey just turned 30, and my son Jake is 28. But raising them was just crazy. I said, I can't feed you guys. You feed yourselves, or find some clothes somewhere. I don't know how that worked with 6. Though I was up near the top, so we just kind of got our clothes, and Jim and I left. We don't know what happened to 4, 5, and 6. But in our house, it was a nonstop wrestle-a-thon. And I love telling kids, like, that's all we did. We just wrestled. We wrestled to see, like, who got in the front seat of the car. Or we wrestled to see who got the last piece of pizza. Or we just wrestled for anything. So my mom made one hard and fast rule. It was like, you do not wrestle in the living room. So we're like, okay, we'll try not to. But one day I was walking through the living room, and Jim jumped on me. So I had to do something. So I flipped him over me, and he landed on the couch and broke it into pieces, which was not good. So I was just going to run away, and Jim said, no, don't worry, I'll tell Mom what happened. My mom came in and, of course, freaked out to see the couch. She said, what's happened in here? And I said, And then Jim said, oh, you know what happened? John did it. It's like, wow. Jim, of course, became a lawyer, which is perfect. And I just said, oh, no, you know what happened? Tom did it. And then Tom said, no, Greg did it. Greg said, Brian did it. Brian said, no, wait, Jeff did it. And then Jeff was the littlest, so he had nobody to blame. He just said, the dog did it. It was a good answer. So I honestly think that's where I started to become a storyteller. And I just thought, this is the way you get out of things. You tell the story. So honestly, I think that's where the true story of the 3 pigs came from. If the wolf got to tell the story, it wasn't his fault, right? It was the pig's fault. Yeah. And this is full of great stories. I can't even read all the stories that are in this book because some of them come with warning labels. This one I think I can, though, because it's called Sorry, Greg. Yes, this is an x-ray of a broken collarbone. It's that little bone right here in the front part of your shoulder. You can actually feel it. It's kind of a teeny little bone. And did you know that it only takes like 7 pounds of pressure to break? Like, we didn't know that. Until one day, my mom said, why don't you boys let Greg play with you? Jim and John, you're the 2 oldest ones. It would be nice. Greg really loves you. Let him play with you. And we said, no, Greg's kind of like big and gangly, and just, we don't like him either. And my mom said, no, let Greg play with you. He loves you. And we said, no, we don't like him. And then my mom, in her very motherly way, said, well, you know what? Just let Greg play with you. So we let Greg play with us. And we played a lot of stuff. We played baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, run around and smash each other. Other games we invented. And I told the kids today in school, too, like Ghost Rider. I recommended they not try it, but I can't guarantee it. Ghost Rider is where you ride your bike under the monkey bars, you know, that kind of half moon. And then you just grab onto the bars and let your bike go. And then it's like a ghost is riding it. I love like telling the story to a group of kids and seeing the teachers and the gym teacher in the back going like, and then we thought of an even better game, double Ghost Rider. Two guys ride their bike under the monkey bars, grab on, and then the bikes go off and smash each other. And then we thought of an even better game. Triple Ghost Rider, yes. That's brains. Well, that didn't work out so good because three guys under the monkey bars just became a collision, and then it was like... but another game we invented was called Slaughter Ball. So in Slaughter Ball, you get a whole bunch of people in one football. You throw the football up in the air, and then whoever catches it gets slaughtered. That means everyone just jumps on him and smashes them. And the guy with the ball has to try to get away and not get smashed. It's a very simple game. Also another one where the gym teacher is just going like, oh, no, no, no. So during one of our Slaughter Ball games, Greg kind of got tangled up in the pile there, and we heard something go like, and then we picked Greg up, and he was going like, ow. So we took him back home. We said, oh, sorry, Mom. I think we broke Greg. And luckily, she was a nurse, so she looked at him and she said, yes, you've broken his clavicle. That's the collarbone. We're going to have to take him to the doctor, get him all wrapped up. Because weirdly, if you break your collarbone, you can't really get it in a cast like you can a broken arm or a broken leg. They give you this weird pad thing that looks like shoulder pads. So we ended up breaking Greg's collarbone, I think 4 times. We say 4. My mom says 5. But that last one was Greg's fault on his own. We didn't do that. He fell out of a tree or something. So almost every picture we have of Greg, he looks like this. Please don't tell Greg I'm going around the country showing this. It must be taking a little piece of his soul every time. Like, what every picture, they're hanging on the house. Every picture day, here's Greg. Those are not his real shoulders. Those are his real ears. I don't know what happened there. We had nothing to do with that. But this was bad for everybody else in the family, too, not just Greg. Because here's what happened. So like on picture day, this is me in 2nd grade wearing my brand new coat, looking very spiffy. And then next year, I gave my coat to Tom. He's looking even better. He's got a different tie. Then the next year, Greg was supposed to get the coat, but he had the weird pads on. So we gave the coat to our neighbor, Bobby Ducharme. He lived down the block. But the weird, terrible thing was, and I think the Ducharmes had like 12 kids, so the coat got eaten or something. We never got it back. And then the worst thing happened. Jeff was supposed to get the coat next year, but there was no coat. So my mom made Jeff wear this coat. Oh, yeah, cute, kind of, but not if you're going into like 5th grade. He got pushed around. Sorry, Jeff. Well, so Knucklehead is full of stories like that. It was the craziest household to grow up in. I had a couple other stories in the book that I have told to group audiences. My favorite one is like Jim and I lived in the basement for a while, and we grew up in Michigan, so we had a space heater down there. And one night in the winter, Jim and I had this brilliant idea that we would turn off the space heater kind of like we put out campfires. So we just peed on it, which was a great idea until about 1 second after it hit that little coil that was all red hot. And it was just like, oh man, that is the worst smell ever. So we ended up throwing the space heater out in the snow, like in our backyard. We told our mom we just lost it or something. Another story called Crossing Swords, you'll have to look up on your own. There's no swords in it. It's just about all of us going to the bathroom together. I read that one to the president. Maybe I'll tell you that one later. Well, so I grew up loving school. My dad was an elementary school principal. We had tons of books in our house. I remember my mom and dad reading to us, and I loved the stories like Go Dog Go, and The Carrot Seed, and Green Eggs and Ham, The Five Chinese Brothers. But weirdly, I was in school, going to school, and we were learning to read with Dick and Jane books. And I know some of you out there born back in the 1900s, like I was. Like, those things were terrible. Like, you had those books too. Like, why did they try to teach us with those things? Because I remember reading those books and reading like, oh, Dick, look at Jane run, ha, ha, ha. And I was like, this is terrible. Why are we working to learn this? But I got to go home and then read things like Green Eggs and Ham. And I thought, oh, that's reading. That's what I want to do. So I think that's one of the things that inspired me to become both a reader and a writer. So I went all through school, actually studied to be a doctor for a while, mostly because I love science, and my mom also told me it was a really easy job, and you could make a lot of money. She totally conned me, and she's a nurse. So I should have thought like, oh, this is where that's coming from. So I actually took med boards and everything. I was going to apply to medical schools until I realized, well, I didn't realize, my girlfriend told me, she said, you'd be a terrible doctor. Like, you don't like sick people or hospitals. And I went, yeah, you're right. That's why am I doing this? So I went and studied writing at Columbia University in New York. And that's what took me to New York like 40 years ago. And I got a master's in fiction writing. And so I have an undergrad in chemistry and pre-med and a master's in fiction writing. And what I did after I graduated from that was paint apartments all throughout New York. Some of my finest work is in semi-gloss, in people's bathrooms. See, bathrooms is just funny. I'm just going to say bathrooms every once in a while. And so painting, I was writing, trying to like break into the adult writing field, and I thought I would write the great American novel, because I love books like Thomas Pynchon's work, David Foster Wallace, John Barth, big, giant, weird books. But then I heard about a job teaching school that was available in New York. And luckily it was a private school, because you didn't have to have credentials, because I had these weird credentials. I actually applied to be a first grade assistant teacher. And the headmaster looked, he said, oh, this is great. You studied pre-med, you have a master's in fiction writing, and you want to be a first grade assistant teacher. I said, do you play any instruments? And he was serious, because they had a band, like all the faculty had a band. I said, no, I'm more like a lead singer kind of guy. So he said, you're hired. But I probably should have asked more questions there, too. Like starting with, why do you need a first grade assistant teacher in the middle of the year? Like, what happened to the old one? And this class was insane. Is anybody in first grade here? Oh, nice. Because you know how crazy first graders are, right? Like a whole bunch of them are really crazy. But I had the best time with these first graders, just learning everything. Like, we're learning everything all over again. And that's where I realized after I taught for a couple years that that should be my audience. So here's my very first second grade class. I'm the guy with more hair in the back there, a little taller. They were the greatest class ever. I mean, they were readers, they were writers, they were musicians, they were artists, they were dancers, they were fearless. Like, and I just loved that about second graders, like everything is possible. I think it's this weird slope that we go through, like every year after that, something is less possible. You think like, oh, I'm not a good drawer. Oh, I'm not a good speaker. Oh, I'm not a good dancer. But these guys thought they were good at everything, which I kind of loved. And I thought, this is my audience. This is who I want to write for. So I took off from teaching just to write stories. And this was the first one that got published. But in the forum, I sent it out for like a whole year and got rejected everywhere. Everyone thought it was too weird. And then I got together with the illustrator who I know. He did some paintings. We sent it out again, and they said, now we know it's too weird. Like, these pictures are very weird. Then we got rejected all over again. But finally, somebody took a chance on it, and 25 years ago, it was published. And now it's in like 30 languages, and it's I think it sold over 5 million copies itself, which is wonderful. And then, so I did, like the Library of Congress asked me to be the ambassador of all children's literature in 2009. And I said, I've never even heard of that. What is that? And they said, well, you'd be the first one, so you can kind of make it up as you go along. So I said, I'm in. That sounds great. And you get a medal with your name on it. So my name's on the other side of that. I went around the country and I was traveling with Dave Shannon, who wrote No David. Does anybody know that book? Like, he's as crazy as his books. So we were speaking to a bunch of kindergartners, and he told them, John's the new ambassador. And you know what you have to do to say hello and goodbye to ambassador? You salam. So he taught all these kindergartners to go like, oh. I actually put it online. So you can go on YouTube and write Scieszka salam. And there's like 200 kindergartners going like, oh. That just never gets old. I did like 2 years of that, because like you have to do the salam, you really do. And so it was George who gave me the medal back in '09, and Laura Bush. So I have the authority from the higher authority. And I like to tell kids, so this is what I just wear when I'm around the house, you know, being casual in my tails. And kids always want to know, like, what kind of car do you drive? So I just have a picture of my Lamborghini, which is so good. Because I used to tell kids the truth, which is like, no, I live in New York. You actually don't need a car. You can take the taxi or the subway. But I get this great, like, reaction. Like, kids would just look at you like, yeah, too bad. This really isn't a good job, is it? But now this thing always gets a scream. It's just like, oh, man. And there's also the teachers in the back, the same ones going like, oh, man. The only time I got caught for this, though, was in a school in California. And during the question and answer period, this one little guy said, did you get the ceramic brakes on that Murcielago? And I was like, yeah. Like, who wouldn't get the what? The ceramic brakes, right. So it turns out his dad had 3 of them in different colors. I said, well, next question. Well, here's the thing I wanted to talk a little bit about. I started this program called Guys Read about 10 years ago. From my experience growing up with a bunch of brothers and then teaching and then having kids of my own, I just found like boys not connecting with reading. And I wasn't sure why. Though even in my house growing up, like half of us are readers, half of us aren't really. And we kind of grew up with the same stuff. And then as I was in school, like as a 2nd grade teacher, I started seeing some of the things that disconnected boys. For one, there were no male role models for reading. I was always the only guy in the faculty room. So when everyone was choosing books, they would of course choose their favorites, which are nice, like Cricket in Times Square, or just kind of sweet books or poetry. And I'd say, like, why don't we read Roald Dahl? How about Revolting Rhymes? How about disgusting stuff? How about nonfiction? How about something about tanks? And everyone would look at me like, oh no. Especially the kindergarten teachers, they always looked at me like, oh no. And I just say, well, you want to wrestle? Then that got really awkward. We won't go into that. But I thought it could settle the disagreement. And part of it is I think boys just don't get to read what they like. And another piece of it is boys are developmentally slower. Like, that's no newsflash to anyone who has a brother or a son or a boyfriend or a husband. Like, you got to cut us some slack. We're like 5 years behind you, starting from year 1. And this is so obvious in elementary school. Like in 2nd grade, my little girls were like just, you know, their cursive was perfect. They knew the whole multiplication tables. The boys couldn't even sit in a chair. It was just like, man, let's start with the chair. But they were just like my little brothers. So I knew, like, you guys, they're processing stuff, but differently. And their likes are different. But 10 years ago, that was kind of like, I don't know, you couldn't even really say that. You couldn't say, maybe your gender does have something to do with how you read. But when you think about it, too, like the books that are on my side of the table in our bedroom and my wife's side of the bed are completely different. I mean, I try to read some of her stuff once in a while, And I just go like, oh, no, I can't take any more like historical queen drama things. I tried a couple of those. What was that? Those Hilary Mantel books, which everyone loved. It's just like, eh. But then she does the same thing. I can't give her like David Foster Wallace. She goes like, oh, I'm going to throw up after 2 pages. But we make kids do that, though. But we don't even reflect that in elementary school. We say, everyone's going to read Little House on the Prairie. And that's actually what happened to my son in 3rd grade, which was hysterical. Because he's not really a fan of reading. My daughter is. She's a nut about reading. Jake's more a hockey player. And that's his identity. So when Little House on the Prairie was the one required book, we got to that chapter where Laura and Pa are going to go out and make a door. Like, that's the chapter. It starts, they're going to go out and cut down a tree. So Jake looks at me and goes, oh, this is not going to be the whole chapter, is it? I said, yeah, I think it is. He goes, oh. And sure enough, they cut down the tree, they cut it into boards, they make nails. And Jake was just like, oh, this would be so much better if there were like motorcycles and wolves that were on fire. I was like, yeah, it'd be a little different Little House on the Prairie. But I think so. I started this website just to gather books that boys like. And it was kind of like a grassroots movement from the bottom up rather than the top down. So rather dictating what boys should read, I just said, what are boys reading? Just tell us books you like. So on guysread.com, all these book titles are assembled in groups. We're starting to do age groups too. And we take stuff from people all across the world who just say, my son liked this book, or my brother liked this book, or I like this book. Give it a try. Because I think that's a good low-key presentation for boys too. You know how men are. You can't tell them to do anything. You have to maybe suggest it. Which is why we started Guys Read, the library. So now this is a 5-volume set of just a collected bunch of stories. So you can read 10 stories in here, or not, or just read one. Or read one, and if you don't like it, don't read the rest of it. With a bunch of great people like Jack Gantos, Christopher Paul Curtis, Owen Colfer, who I saw was here, and Kate DiCamillo and I got to write a story together, which was so much fun. She's amazing. And then we did stories of all thrillers, illustrated by the guy who did Lemony Snicket's books. And there's guys in here like M.T. Anderson, Margaret Peterson Haddix also, Women Can Write for Guys. All sports stories, all science fiction stories. And the newest one coming out this fall is all true stories, nonfiction. And there's great stuff in here about early dentistry, about mountain men, like this mountain man who got all cut up by a bear. He got completely clawed by a bear, so his friend said, we think he's going to die. Let's just leave him here. We'll take his stuff. He woke up like 2 days later naked with these big bear scratches in his back and his leg broken. He said, I got to get out of here. So he walked like 200 miles with a broken leg. He had the maggots eat the pus out of his back. Too much? I see people cringing. Some of my favorite stories anyhow. But that's the kind of stuff I love reading. And he made it. And he found the guys who left him. And he just came up to him, and these guys thought, oh no, this guy's going to kill us. And all he did is he said, oh, I feel bad for you guys. Give me back my gun. And he took back his gun. The end. How's that for a story? Here's a book I just want to show you quickly that a friend of mine, Mac Barnett, and I made. We wondered what would happen if some kid got a really sweet book and maybe fixed it. Because we did a similar thing when we were little, and I kind of thought, hey, that would be a fun thing to do. In fact, one time when we were on book tour, we bought a book for a friend of ours and just added stuff to it with our Sharpie markers. It was a little book about a cat in a library. His name was Dewey. And we just adjusted some of the illustrations, which were creepy enough to start with, but we just made him into like a vampire cat. And then we gave the cat fangs and had lasers coming out of his eyes. So we thought we should do the same thing, but we thought the lady who wrote Dewey wouldn't like that. So we wrote our own sweet book called Birthday Bunny, and then changed it into Battle Bunny, just by drawing on it. So we actually found an illustrator, too, who did both. So he had to paint 2 whole books. Like he did this one, then he had to mess it up. And we imagine, we imagine what would happen that like it's given to this little guy Alex by his grandmother. So she writes in the book first. We weren't the first ones to do it. She writes, "Happy birthday, Alexander, to my little birthday bunny on his special day. Love, Gran. So now Alex is a 10-year-old boy. I mean, he's kind of a good illustrator. He's a good storyteller. So he decides to make it into a better story, like Battle Bunny. Look at these great additions he made. I love the rabbit going, "Obey me." And even up there where the balloons are, you can see it turns happy birthday into doomsday. And happy is, see what happens to bunnies on doomsday. So it's a very sweet book. Like it says, Bunny woke up from a night of pleasant dreams, in a little nod to Franz Kafka. Today is a very special day, he thought. Today is my birthday. Today I'm not just a bunny, I am Battle Bunny. Now this is a really weird book to try to read. You actually need two people to read it. I've read it with librarians, which is great, where one person reads the sweet version, and at the very same time, the other person reads the battle version. It's a duet. So you read it at the exact same time, and it just diverges at that word that got changed, kind of like the text does. So look at these great additions. The original one says, Birthday Bunny made himself his favorite breakfast, carrot juice and a bowl of Carrot Krispies. Alex's editions say, Battle Bunny made himself his favorite breakfast, brain juice and a bowl of greasy guts. And then we put a website up at mybirthdaybunny.com, and we have the entire birthday book that kids can change. And we've got some of the best ones. There's Zombie Bunny, Ballet Bunny, Sleeping Bunny. One kid just brilliantly put like a sleeping mask over Bunny's face in all the illustrations and changed all his dialogue to Z's. All he wants to do is go to sleep. It's so good. I saw that and I went, oh, I wish we would have thought of that. We might write more. So go look at mybirthdaybunny.com and you can put your own there. Well, here, let's get to some Frank, because today is the very first day that Frank has been published. And I'm so glad to start here in Nashville because you guys have a combination of like both the most amazing library here and a both amazing bookstore in Parnassus. And it really is kind of great to see a lively book culture where people are coming out to care about what's being published. So we thought we better come here and show you Frank Einstein. And kids ask me, when they ask me, like, where do you come up with your ideas? I think I came up for the idea of this one just with the title. I thought the name Frank Einstein was funny. It's kind of like Frankenstein and Einstein, Albert Einstein. So he's a 10-year-old genius who can make anything. And I also got to use all my pre-med training, which makes my mom very happy. So please buy it, and it'll make her even happier. So I just thought, why don't I try to explain all of science in 6 books? And kind of like the old Tom Swift books, which inspired a bunch of scientists. Like you hear these guys now who are working on stuff like the Hadron Collider. Like they grew up reading Tom Swift and thought, wow, maybe this is possible. And actually, did you know even the word taser comes from Tom Swift? He had one adventure called Tom Swift and the Electronic Rifle. So the initials taser stand for Tom A. Swift's Electronic Rifle. And everyone just says taser and has kind of forgot. So I thought, well, what if I could inspire a kid to be a scientist? Because the stuff in science is more mind-boggling than anything I could make up. So Frank is kind of a genius, and he decides to try to make a self-educating robot, kind of like a Frankenstein monster, in his lab. So he puts all these household parts together, like a toaster, a vacuum cleaner, some roller skates, a Casio watch, a Hug Me Monkey doll. He puts all the pieces together, he raises it up to the garage roof and lets the lightning hit it, and it all just blows up and it breaks. So nothing much happens. He goes to bed, he just throws it in the junk. But that night, a little spark jumps from the memory chip to the hands, and something assembles itself in his laboratory. So the next morning when his grandfather asks, hey, what happened to the toaster? It's all in pieces. Why don't you go get the rest of them? He goes, oh, okay. He goes back to his lab, and Frank is surprised to meet this guy, Clink, a robot who has built himself out of a shop vac and a lot of other pieces and a webcam. So he's this incredibly smart robot, which is a great writer's cheat to then now I can just do anything. So Clink knows everything in the world, which is kind of great. And he's a bit persnickety too, though. He has all the best equipment, but no sense of humor. And then another robot Clink helps assemble, and sometimes assembles himself at the same time, is Clank, who had to do with all the leftover parts. He's not very bright. He's only got the memory of a Casio watch. I think that's exactly 8K. And he's got a Casio keyboard in the middle of him, so he makes some good beats. And he's got some vacuum cleaner arms and a strainer on his head. But he knows some excellent jokes. In fact, he tells, and he loves to hug people because he's made partially of the Hug Me monkey doll. So he always wants to hug people. And that's his answer to everything, which is, hug me. And there he is hugging Frank. And he drives Clink crazy by telling him things like knock-knock jokes. So here's Clank. He pushes the button on his side, and he says, knock, knock. And Clink says, oh, for goodness sake, don't start this again. These are not funny. Knock, knock. I know you're just going to say something weird, and I'm supposed to say, who's there, but I'm not going to. Knock, knock. I'm not going to answer. Knock, knock. I'm not going to answer. Knock, knock. I won't. Knock, knock. Okay, who's there? Boo. Boo-hoo. You don't have to cry about it. It is just a joke. Ha, ha, ha. Ha, 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 ha. And then Clink freaks out. Every time he doesn't get a joke, he just blows a circuit, and his old GPS kicks in, and he goes, ah, in 100 yards, turn left. Ha, 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 ha. And then my other favorite character who I invented in this book, and this is kind of the beauty of getting to be a writer, you can just think of some things like, who would be the bad guy? So the bad guy, I just kind of looked into history and thought, oh, I know who the bad guy is, Thomas Edison. So he's a little evil genius named T. Edison who just tries to steal all Frank's ideas. So here's the bad guy. Kind of looking like the illustrator looks, weirdly enough. The illustrator made him look like himself. And that guy holding the deed, I think, is my best stroke of genius yet. It's Thomas Edison's evil chief financial officer, Mr. Chimp, who is actually a chimpanzee who escaped from a product testing lab. I think they were testing shampoo on him or something. And he has taught himself sign language. So he speaks in chimp sign language the whole book, which I just kind of love. Or I don't know why, but I just thought that's kind of a great idea. I'm still not quite sure if it is or not. We'll see what happens. But Mr. Chimp's kind of weird. We don't know what's going to happen with Mr. Chimp because he kind of thinks like a chimp, which is he wants to eat a banana and rip your face off. Mostly. And look at him. So he does all the bad work for T. Edison. Here he is throwing the guys out, and T. Edison's just loving it. And in every book, there's going to be back matter where I can just like tell more jokes and explain things. Here's Thomas Edison's new inventions on the left. He's not going to let you see anything. And then Mr. Chimp's alphabet on the right. So you can speak like a chimp in sign language. Well, let's stop here and take some questions, for goodness sake. Now I think you know way too much. Mike will bring up the house lights, and anybody can ask, well, almost any question. Yes. Yes. Oh, how did I get the idea for Guys Write for Guys Read? That was one of the very first books, and I just thought like it would be fun to ask all these different writers what it was like growing up as a guy. So everyone wrote these short little like 3-page things, which was so much fun. Did you get to read some of those? Yeah, and then the other library, now the new books are kind of like all different kind of writers, and they're longer. And then you can have a whole set of like 50 stories. And then pick any ones you like. And throw away the ones you don't like. Yeah, all the way in the back. What was the weirdest question a kid ever asked you? Well, today somebody asked if Greg is okay. And I thought about it for a minute. I thought, no, actually Greg's not. He's a very angry man. I don't know why. Oh, I know another weird question. When Dave Shannon and I were out on tour together, one little kid raised his hand, and he was a kindergartner, so they are a little fuzzy on questions. And he said, we just moved our house, and my dad couldn't find his underwear. And we were like, great. What was the question part? And then he said, he wore his Speedo. And that was it. It was just like, great. I think that was the weirdest question ever. Yes?
I actually went to Culver Military Academy in high school.
Oh, nice.
I was wondering if there was any teachers that impacted you at that time where you thought maybe you wanted to.
Yeah. She went to Culver Military Academy, where I went 3 years up to high school. The best school ever. I had the most incredible time there. Oh, I wish I would have had a picture. I have a picture of myself as lieutenant with my saber, with my middle finger conveniently on it, which my mom discovered later, went, what is that? But I loved that school. I didn't really get the whole military part. I followed my brother there, and I probably should have asked more questions about that too. Like, oh, you march to breakfast? I don't like that. But we had amazing teachers there. And I think my favorite one was probably Duffer Donnelly. And they were the guys who wrote the math textbooks of the time. They were algebra and geometry textbooks. And Duffer Donnelly was like 6'4", and he could sit at his desk, and he would write algebraic equations backwards behind his head, not even looking. And we were just like, oh, that's not fair. Like, how are we supposed to know this stuff? But it actually inspired me to be curious about everything. I just had the best time there. I won't ask you what year you graduated, because I was in like the 70s. Oh, 98. Yeah, so I graduated in 72. And then we got girls my senior year, which was a whole other story. Yes? Where do I get my ideas at? That is probably one of the hardest questions. And a lot of it is like I get ideas from reading other books. Like I love to read fairy tales and then change them a little bit. Or I love to read like Frankenstein and change it a little bit. I kind of like take stuff and just change it a little bit now that I think about it. Yes?
Do you have any writing rituals before you sit down and write?
Oh, do I have any writing rituals? No. You know what? I think honestly, like being a teacher for 10 years, my ritual is like any 10 minutes is great. Like I don't even like light the candle or anything or sit down or wait for it to be quiet. It's just like, well, let's do it now. And I love to tell kids it's like a terrible job. It is like the most antisocial thing you could ever do. It's like you sit alone in your room and you think about stuff and like don't talk to people for days and days and days. But then you get paid for doing it, so that's kind of good. And you don't have to wear your pants if you don't want to. I knew you'd like that. That was just for you. Yes? Oh, does T. Edison turn Mr. Chimp into a hug me monkey? Not yet. But there's 5 more books to come. So anything can happen. And we don't know what Mr. Chimp is capable of. Because if he learns sign language, I think he can learn a lot. Yes? What does it say under the covered up stuff? I don't know. T. Edison won't let us know. So the first invention he made is 5D TV. The next one is air text, laser movie projectors and no bulb lights. But he just likes to steal ideas, kind of an Edison thing. Yes, young lady in the back. When was the Stinky Cheese Man made? 1993. So 20-some-ish years ago. But that was one of my favorite books because it was the Gingerbread Man was my daughter's favorite story. And she made me read it so many times I freaked out and just had to change it to something else. And it became the Stinky Cheese Man. Yes? How are your books so funny? I kind of love funny stuff. Well, I grew up and I loved cartoons like Bugs Bunny and the Coyote and Roadrunner. And I loved reading Mad Magazine, which was very funny. And I kind of copied it, and I made this book that's being demonstrated here. Yes? That's an excellent question. If that guy's dad lost his underwear and wore a Speedo, who found it? I don't know. I didn't ask the follow-up question. That's a good one, though. I should have said, how did the rest of the move go? We're getting more good questions. Yes?
You said that you originally wanted to write the Great American Novel. Are you still considering adult fiction? Have you?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, she said, am I still considering writing fiction for adults or adult fiction, which always sounds creepy to me. But maybe. I don't know. I kind of love the kid audience so much. It's just, I don't know if adults actually pay enough attention. If you wrote something, if they would read it. And I know, I love that kids have read stuff like Stinky Cheese Man 500 times. But I'm working actually on a young adult novel, so I'm gradually working my way up. So I guess the answer would be maybe. Yes?
So, Stinky Cheese Man came out when I was 6 or 7.
Oh, don't rub it in.
No, but what is it like knowing that your book has been read literally by millions of kids? And
Yeah.
Very made readers, because
Yeah.
it's not a normal kid's book. It's not a fluffy kid.
Now you're just freaking me out. So she was saying she read The Stinky Cheese Man when she was 6, so she's much younger. No, she didn't say that. But what is that like to know that millions of people have read it? It kind of weirds me out. I try not to think about it. But people come up to, yeah, now that you brought it up. But people do come up to me and say, and I love that they say, this changed my 3rd grade life. And at the time, it was like Lane and I just trying to make the funniest book we could. I brought all the funny writers that I knew. Because in The Stinky Cheese Man, that's my homage to Don Quixote, metafiction that loops around on itself like John Barth, or Tristram Shandy, which is a weird book by Lawrence Stern from the 1800s. He did that thing where he said, I'm just going to blank out a whole page because it's too crazy for you to see. So I just stole a bunch of literary tricks like that and mashed it up. And then to see it now just boggles my mind. And to see it in translation, I look at the Chinese version of Stinky Cheese Man, say, what does that even mean in China? Yes? Yeah?
I was curious, how many of your characters are inspired by your brothers?
Oh, how many of my characters are inspired by my brothers? I wouldn't give them credit for any of them. But that's just being a brother. I think more of my characters are probably inspired by the stuff I read, and also the kids I taught. This middle grade fiction in particular, Frank Einstein. I just go back to my 3rd and 4th graders and just let them live on the page because they're so crazy. No one's crazier than them. Yes?
Do you have any recommended authors or series?
Do I have any recommended authors or series? Yes. What grade are you in?
6.
So what kind of stuff do you like to read right now? Are you an action-adventure person?
Fiction.
Any fiction, humor? Oh, do you know Owen Colfer?
No.
He's a very funny Irish writer. I would look him up. Come up to me at the table, too. I'll think of some more. It's all, you know what it's like? It's when people ask you, what are you reading right now? And you go, I can't remember. Even though you have it like right next to you. Yes?
What is your favorite book that you've published?
What's my favorite book that I published? Wow. Maybe Three Little Pigs, because it was the very first one. But I kind of like Frank Einstein because it's the latest one. Oh, and I've got even another one coming up that I kind of am liking too. So here's what's going to go on for all 6 series. Frank's going to go through all of science, starting with matter was first, matter and antimatter. Second is energy. Third will be all human body stuff, which should be good. Fourth is all interconnected life. Fifth, the earth. And the sixth, galaxies and the universes beyond. And so every book will have a different invention that T. Edison tries to mess up. And each one will be a different color, which is kind of great. I love that about the book company, that they're doing that. So here was the first one, and Frank and the guys are making the antimatter motor. And here's the next one coming up in the spring, Frank Einstein and the electro finger, which I kind of love. They let me get away with that title, too. Because in one of the books, Watson, who is Frank's good friend, says, Frank, give me the finger. I think I wrote the whole book just for that line. But it kind of trades on static electricity, like that great thing we always used to do at our little brothers, shuffle around the carpet and then shock their nose. And then just mix that in with a little Tesla, inventing wireless energy, and Earth as a magnet, and voila, you have the electro finger. So that's my new favorite book, I think. Do I have time for more questions? Who am I? Yes.
Do you have a limo?
Do I have a limo? Sometimes, which is kind of nice. I love when I get a limo. But I don't really have a Lamborghini. I always look up a new picture of a Lamborghini, though. I change my Lamborghini every couple weeks. Because I had a gray one for a while, but it didn't look cool enough. I love that the orange one really pops. You get this like, oh, a Tesla would be. But they don't look cool enough, though. They're kind of cool. Yes. Am I rich and famous? That's my new favorite question. My wife would say no. I would say yes. So you're getting 2 answers there. That's good. Oh, I should tell you how we get money, though. So the way authors get money is we just get some of what a book costs. We usually give most of it to other people. So a book like this costs like $15, and out of that, I usually get like $1. And then if I pay my taxes, it's like 50 cents. And then usually when I tell kids that, they go like, oh, I don't want to be a writer. But then when you explain, like, if you sell 1,000 of them, you get 1,000 times $1. If you sell 10,000, you get 10,000 times $1. So buy more of those. Help me with my Lamborghini fund. This will be way better than Kickstarter, the John Scieszka Lamborghini fund. Doesn't sound so sensitive, but... Oh, yes?
What is your favorite historical figure?
Who is my favorite historical figure? Wow. Does Bugs Bunny count? He's not really historical. You know what? Who I really like? George Washington, weirdly enough. He was such like a guy ahead of his time. He thought about great stuff. And he really led people, which is kind of crazy. I read about him all the time. So George Washington mixed with Bugs Bunny. That's a terrible answer. Yes? Oh, yeah, all the way in the back in the purple. What's my favorite color? Purple. Oddly enough, just like your shirt. This could go on forever. Oh, yes. Oh, have I decided any other covers? No, not yet. Because the guy now, the illustrator, I give him the story, and then he has to draw all the pictures. So right now, he drew this one first, because we kind of had the idea of what it's going to be, and he's still drawing like crazy and really nervous, so don't bug him. Yes?
I have an idea of another one of the covers.
Oh, good. What's your idea?
It's he's going to be holding up a
Oh, Frank Einstein makes a time machine. Let me write that down. This is why I need to go on tour more. Write the rest of these 6 books. Thanks for that idea. All right, I think we have time for one more question, then I better start signing books. Yes, over there.
Why did you choose T. Edison as the villain instead of like George Washington?
Why did I choose T. Edison? He was kind of a mean guy, Thomas Edison. When you read about him, he got in a fight with that guy Tesla about how to make electricity. So he even did mean things like electrocuting an elephant, which you might not want to look at. But I have that in book 2. It's only a stuffed elephant, so don't be nervous. So he was kind of... I'm taking him on tour with me. Bathroom and stuffed elephant. Who knew? My best laugh lines. Okay, really, the last one now. Yes?
Which one of you had the idea to pee on the heater?
This is a perfect one to end with. Which one of us had the idea to pee on the heater? I'm thinking back. I think we were only like 9, so Jim was my older brother. I'm going to say it was his idea. I was kind of a follower as a youth. I'll ask Jim, you know what? I think I'll call him and ask him. Jim, whose idea was that? Because that was not good. Well, Nashville, thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. See, now I told you, you know way too much about John Scieszka, more than you ever wanted to know. So now I think we're just going to go out and sign books with Parnassus. Yes, and you may Salon if you wish. I wouldn't stop you. Oh, very nicely done. Thanks, guys.